Well, Elon Musk fanboys, if you bought a Tesla over the last couple of years, you are absolutely screwed when it comes to resale value. Like, not just screwed, but decimated. The amount of negative equity or just the amount of value loss if you happen to pay cash for your car is just astronomical. We're going to talk about why this is happening and what is most likely going to happen moving forward after this whole situation kind of settles down. But before we get into that, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Let's get into it. Before we talk about the catalyst that is currently decimating the resale value of Teslas, we have to talk about what has been happening with the resale value of Teslas over the last year. So if you've been following this channel, then you know that wholesale values on average with most cars have declined by about 20% over the last 365 days. And Teslas are no different, but the resale value of Teslas has actually declined more than the market average. And that's because Teslas had a price run up that was pretty massive. So what you saw prior to the pandemic is that, Teslas would obviously all be sold for MSRP brand new because Tesla is direct to consumer. And then on the used market, well, they would slowly depreciate from brand new. Now, resale value in Teslas for quite some time was actually pretty strong because of how much demand there was for the product. And so there were, a lot of vehicles prior to the pandemic that would still sell for close to original MSRP within the Tesla lineup, especially like the performance models, for example, and sometimes even the long range models as well. And then once the pandemic struck, well, things went crazy and pretty much every single Tesla was selling for over original MSRP brand new, just like a lot of other vehicles. And so this was definitely creating a pretty interesting situation where, people were paying massive amounts for these Teslas, again, over original MSRP, which is so weird to me because the whole excitement about Tesla is that you don't have to pay over MSRP because it's direct to consumer. But supply and demand, that's just what happens within markets. And that has obviously completely disappeared. And so what we've saw over the course of 2022 is that those over MSRP asking prices on Teslas just kept shrinking and shrinking, and they completely went away. And it basically reversed to where most Teslas on the used market were not only not selling for over MSRP, but they were selling for significantly under original MSRP, especially some of the, higher end packages like the Plaids, for example. I mean, there was one point where people were literally paying close to $200,000 for Plaids, and now there's a lot that you can find around the $100,000 range. Again, it depends on mileage, condition, and all that. That's how the used car normally works, but they've had a massive price decline, and there is a person that reached out to me that happened to have paid that crazy price for a Plaid, and so they have a loan on their Plaid for like $185,000, and their car is now worth somewhere around $100,000 roughly. Well, probably not anymore after Tesla's recent price cuts that we'll talk about. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that Teslas were already on a value nosedive because they were correcting with the overall market. And Teslas happened to have a price run up that was higher than most other cars. And so the price run down is higher than what you're going to see with most other vehicles. And so this leads us to talk about Tesla's price cuts that they just released. And this is probably what you've seen all over the news, but I need to talk about something that people in the news aren't talking about. And that is the current resale value of Teslas after these price cuts, because it's really ugly. But let's talk about the price cuts. So first off, the Model 3 Performance, for example, was $63,000 just a few days ago, and it is now $54,000, 14% price cut right there. And then a base model, Model 3, had a slightly smaller price cut, around 6%. It's now $44,000. And then the Model Y that had a starting price of $66,000 now starts at $53,000. Now, this is done for a reason. Tesla is basically trying to make it so that more of their vehicles are slotted under the $55,000 range so that more of their vehicles qualify for the federal tax credit, which is $7,500. And if you happen to see my very embarrassing video about the tax credit stuff that I'm keeping up as a learning lesson for myself to do better research on videos, but anyways, then what you would, know is that means that, well, if you have a $44,000 Tesla and you qualify for the whole $7,500 tax credit, then that's like buying it for under $40,000, which is really inexpensive. That's the cheapest you've been able to buy a Tesla, I think, like pretty much ever at this point. But the point that I'm trying to make with this section of the video is Tesla just released a bunch of price cuts. And I mean, with the Model Y, that's like a 20% price cut on the vehicle. And so this is putting a massive amount of downward pressure on the used market, because right now you can buy, again, like a Tesla Model 3 Performance, for example, after the federal tax credit for $40-something thousand. And so you can see that this means that a used Model 3 Performance is going to have to be significantly less than that to convince someone to want to purchase it. Like, why would you buy a used one when you can buy a new one for less money or the same amount of money, right? And this actually leads us into talking about car dealerships, because although brand new Teslas are sold direct to consumer, used Teslas are typically sold by car dealers. Yes, there are some private party sales, but most of them are sold by car dealers because a lot of Teslas get traded into car dealers. And then car dealers, frankly, historically have gone to auction to buy Teslas because it's a car that they can usually make a decent amount of profit off of, and they can usually move at a pretty quick rate because, again, demand historically has been pretty high for Teslas. But over the last few months, it's completely died. And dealers have been noticing this. And so whenever I talk to dealers about Teslas over the last few months, they would tell me that they're trying to get rid of the current inventory they have, and they don't really want to get more Teslas. So they stop buying Teslas from auction, just like, some other cars, but especially, again, the Tesla cars. And then if they were going to get a car traded in, and this is before the price cuts we just saw, they said that on the low side, they would offer 5% under wholesale, but typically they're offering 10, 15, sometimes even 20% under wholesale value, current wholesale value on the Teslas, because they knew that they're going to sit in that car for so long that even though they were offering, again, 5, 10, 15, 20% under wholesale, then they would be lucky if they would break even on the car by the time that they sold it, with how fast the values were declining on Teslas. I mean, certain models saw 5-figure declines on a monthly basis. Like, that is absolutely massive. And so that obviously, kind of soured dealers on the whole Tesla situation. And frankly, it started to sour owners as well, because a lot of people go into buying a Tesla thinking it's going to have good resale value because that's what it's had historically. And then when it doesn't, it kind of hurts. But like I said, this was before the price cuts. And after the price cuts, dealers across the nation sent out a huge warning, like fire alarms going off, to get rid of every single Tesla inventory. I've had several dealers that, happen to be part of like large corporate dealer groups tell me that they got, as soon as Tesla released those price cuts, they immediately got an email from their corporate overlords, whatever you want to call them, to get rid of all Tesla inventory and do not trade in any Teslas unless you are buying it for dirt cheap. And you guys are probably wondering, what is dirt cheap? At this point, dealers are really only going to be willing to pay, and again, it's going to depend on what region you're in the US and all that kind of stuff, but they're really only going to want to pay probably 20 to 25% under wholesale value, because they expect the values on Teslas to decline at a rapid rate over the next few weeks because of these price cuts that have been released. And so, like, for example, if you just bought, like, let's just say you just bought a brand new Model Y for $66,000. Well, again, you can now buy one for low 50s, and then after the tax credit, you're into the $40,000 range. So your car on the used market is probably worth $30-something thousand. So just take that in for a second. You probably just took a $30,000 plus hit on the car. And I think that that's honestly being optimistic, because again, demand for used Teslas is really low right now, because you can get a brand new Tesla very quickly. Like, there are enough cars that Tesla has built over the last few months that if you put an order in for pretty much any given model, you're going to get your car within, like, people have said they've gotten their car delivered within a few weeks at this point, like really, really quick. And so again, if you're getting a big federal tax credit, and if you're buying the car at a big discount because, again, Tesla just released the price cuts, why would you buy a used one, right? And so it's a rough situation for anyone that owns a Tesla or happened to buy a Tesla over the last couple of years. So let's now talk about what this is going to do to the Tesla market. So on the new car side of things, I think that Tesla has the potential to sell more cars this year than last year because of the price cuts and because of the federal tax incentive. However, the people that are going to be buying these Teslas are probably not current Tesla owners, because current Tesla owners are going to be absolutely buried in their vehicles because of the price cuts, right? And so it's kind of like a catch-22. So if Tesla's able to attract a bunch of new buyers, they will for sure sell new cars. But getting their current customer base to trade in their vehicles and trade up to a new one, that's going to be a little bit more difficult because they're going to have a situation where their customers are going to be, like I said, absolutely bared in their vehicles. They're going to have tons of negative equity, or they're just not going to want to trade up because they've lost so much money if they paid cash for the vehicle that they're just like, I'm just gonna ride it out. I'm gonna ride this till the wheels fall off, right? Now, on the used car market side of things, the values aren't going to like instantly decline on the retail side of things. So if you go look up used Teslas, you're not going to see like $10,000 price cuts right away. It's going to take some time because that's what happens with the used car market is wholesale values decline at a much more rapid rate compared to retail values. So just wait it out, but don't be shocked if you start to see Teslas, Model 3s, Model Ys in the $20,000 range and potentially under $20,000. And I know that Tesla people are going to say sacrilege, that's never going to happen. But seriously, if you can buy a new Model 3 for like under $40,000 after the federal tax credit, if you qualify for the whole tax credit, then if it's a higher mileage used Model 3, then like why the heck would you pay like anything for it at this point with how cheap the brand new ones are going for? And something else to mention is, although electric cars are more reliable in the short term because they have less moving parts and you just don't have to do as much maintenance on them in general, so they're kind of like lower cost to own in the short term. In the long term, electric cars are extremely expensive to own because the second that battery pack goes out, you pretty much have to pay the equivalent to buying an entire new car to replace that battery pack. And so this is another big downward pressure force on just every single electric car, including Teslas. And so I wouldn't be shocked if you start to see Teslas that, I'm not talking about like the Model S and the, Model X that are more expensive, but, the Model 3 and the Model Y, especially the rear-wheel drive version of the Model 3, for example, to basically be scrap metal. Because, like, why would you, if the car's like worth less than $20,000 and it's going to cost that, maybe even more to replace the battery pack, why would you do that instead of just getting a different car at that point? So, yeah, it's going to be an absolute disaster with the used market. And I kind of like, even though I get annoyed with Tesla people because of, how fart sniffy they can be, I honestly feel bad for people that have purchased Teslas over the last few months because like that's just a crappy situation and especially like, again, the Model Y, I think that's the most devastating out of all of them because like I just imagine someone going and paying $60,000, $70,000 for a Model Y, and then when they go to trade it in the next, if they want to trade in with the next few months or the next year or two, they're going to find out that their car is not even worth half of what they paid for it. And I know people are gonna be like, that's what happens in the normal car market. Fair enough, but like that's still like that's going to be a painful thing. And I think that this could potentially, this is just my thoughts, could potentially pull a lot of people out of the Tesla market because like they don't want to get burned like that again, right? This is going to be a very harsh lesson for Tesla owners, and it might leave just a bad enough taste in their mouth that they're just done with Tesla. They're like, I don't want to deal with that resale value ever again. And this video is too long, so we'll see you.